Hello and welcome to 2022 and a happy new year on Viking.TV. It's lovely to be with you. I'm Anne Diamond and I have a host of brilliant and fascinating guests for you every Thursday this year too. My guest this week has been hailed since she was about 6 years old as a second Mozart. Now, amazing and flattering as that accolade seems, at least to the rest of us, she always said she didn't much love it then, and she wanted to be not the second Mozart, she wanted to be the first of herself. I tell you what, though, how amazing would it have been to have gone to one of those incredible Mozart concerts in the olden days of Vienna, just to have experienced that musical genius in his emergent years. Well, in this week on Viking.TV, while we're celebrating the wealth of beauty and culture lying along the world's rivers, I can tell you that you could have that amazing experience witnessing the musical phenomenon that is Alma Deutscher. In this new year, Viking guests visiting Vienna on some of the Danube river cruises will have the opportunity to enjoy an exclusive performance with Alma conducting and playing violin with the Strauss Capella Orchestra performing old and new Viennese music. The concerts are going to take place in Vienna's illustrious Vienna Concert Hall, and the Strauss Capella will be performing in those magnificent red and white concert costumes, which are modelled on the outfits of Johann Strauss's own orchestra. There are going to be classics by Mozart and Strauss, as well as a whole new generation of Viennese waltzes and melodies composed by Alma herself. Now, if you're a regular viewer of Thursday interviews here on Viking.TV, you will already have met Alma with her sister Helen. Gosh, quite a long time ago now. But a year later, and Alma is 16, and she's all grown up. No longer will people talk of her as a child prodigy. She is now a successful and prolific composer, performer, and conductor in her own right. And quite appropriately, on top of her many accolades, achievements and awards, this year she will also become godmother of one of Viking's new river ships. So all I can say is a very, very happy new year to Alma Deutscher, who joins us now from her home in Vienna. Hello, Alma.
Hello.
Hello, it's lovely to see you.
I know, it's been quite a long time.
It has been a long time, and for so many people, they've had to endure lockdown after lockdown, not being able to go out, not being able to do the things that they really wanted to do. But you have achieved a lot in the last year. How has the last 18 months or so been for you?
Well, I mean, it's been difficult for everyone, and also for me. And of course, when there's lockdown, it's not the best thing for mood and for inspiration. But I really have the big privilege because I'm a composer. I wasn't wasting my time in the lockdown. I actually used the time to compose my new opera, The Emperor's New Waltz.
That's right. You've been working really hard and working at conducting as well, which we'll talk more about in a moment. But I know that you received a very special award this year as well.
That was very moving. Yes, that was the Leonardo da Vinci Prize in summer, in early summer.
And that's sort of presented by Rotary clubs from right across Europe. And it is for outstanding achievement by a young person in sciences, technology, music, literature and arts, for instance. And I gather you're the youngest ever recipient of that award.
I think so, yes. And there was the foreign minister of Austria, who then became the chancellor, Mr. Schallenberg, and the Speaker of the Parliament, Mr. Sobotka, who gave speeches about me. It was quite overwhelming, but it was very, very moving.
Overwhelming, you say, but I mean, you have won many awards actually. But as a young person now, you're 16 and you are going into the world of adult music. As I said, you're no longer a child prodigy. You are now competing and existing alongside adults in your world, in the musical world, people who have already achieved amazing things. Does that feel a bit scary? It must be wonderful to actually have that sort of award going into what is a new world for you.
Definitely. I mean, I think I'm, I always wanted, ever since I was very young, I never wanted to be a child project. I always wanted to be taken seriously as an adult for my music. And so, I'm really happy that now I'm people just listen to my music because of the music and not because it's a little child who wrote it. And also, it's so exciting about that I'm conducting. That's been my passion now for about a year, that I can interpret my orchestra music myself.
Yes, that's right. It's not just enough to write it, but you want to actually take it right through to the audience. And that must be the most amazing feeling. But on the other hand, you've got a whole orchestra of adults, adult performers in front of you. Were you nervous at all?
I was a little bit nervous, yes. I have to admit, in the beginning, because it was my first time conducting an orchestra, and I could also see that in the beginning the orchestra, they were a little bit who's this little girl, but then as they heard my music, and then they saw that I know it and I know what I want, then they sort of like me. So I won them over. But in the beginning was a challenge. Yes, but there's always a first time.
Oh, yes. I'm fascinated on how you even learn to conduct. I know the part of the conducting course you did was at university, at the University of Music and Performing Arts in Vienna. How do they teach you to conduct? What are the basics?
Well, you see, conducting is a bit like a sign language, actually, to the orchestra. So, I think when people sit in the audience and they think the conductors just sort of merrily wave their hands around, and it just depends on how they're feeling that day, and it's actually not like that at all. It's really the smallest movements, especially in the right hand, they have a very specific meaning to the orchestra. So if you do, this, it means that there will be two upbeats, but if you do it in the other way, it means that it's starting directly. There's only one upbeat, and that makes a big difference to the orchestra. And if you do it wrong, then they all come in at the wrong time. So yes, no, actually the first time when I did it with orchestra, I did it slightly too much. It wasn't completely clear, and so the orchestra played wrong. But really,
what I find fascinating as well is because of the very music that you're conducting, because it's yours, you include yourself as a performer as well. So you're often conducting with your violin bow.
Yes, well, because you see, I was playing the violin and conducting at the same time. There's a long tradition of it in Vienna. It's called the Stehgeigerin, so the standing violinist. And that tradition actually goes back all the way to Johann Strauss. He would conduct with his violin and then turn around and conduct the orchestra, conducting his own waltzes. But of course, in the concerts, I will conduct with violin. I will also conduct with baton.
Yes.
When I'm not playing it, I will also play as a soloist.
But as a soloist, when you do go into a solo and you're playing your solo, there's nobody conducting the orchestra. I presume that's just rehearsal that takes care of that.
Well, yes, but then you show with your violin, you show the rhythm, and if there starts to be any complicated change of tempo, then I turn around and face the orchestra, and I show them with my head and my movements what's happening. Or if there's something really quite complicated, then I would put the violin away and show with my hands. But I arranged it so that all the times when I play the violin, it's quite obvious, and they can follow me just from my movements.
Do you know, that must be exhausting.
Well, it's very, very exciting.
Yes, it is. And as you said, you're following in a long tradition of. I mean, Mozart used to conduct with the violin too, didn't he? But when you went to university to actually learn that, The alumni of that university are very famous names. People like, I mean, Mahler, who was there, Zubin Mehta was there. That must have been quite an extraordinary feeling that you're following in that line.
It was. It's quite an amazing feeling, you know. Then the rooms are called after all these people as well. Yes. No, but Zubin Mehta is really, he's really a wonderful person. I remember actually there's quite a funny story when I was 9, because he's you know, supported me ever since I was really small. And when I was about 9, I had the Fledermaus, the bat, that he was conducting. And I remember I went afterwards and I told him there was something that he was doing that was not quite what was written in the notes. And I sort of complained to him that he hadn't done it completely right, or it wasn't what stood in the notes. And for funny, he wasn't at all offended. You know, he said, "Well, yes, you know, you're completely right, and it's amazing that you noticed. But actually, it's a Viennese tradition that you always do it like it's not exactly what it's written in the notes, but it's like this. And if you study in Vienna, then you learn to do it this way." So it's funny. Now I am studying in Vienna.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's a wonderful tradition to be part of, and you are part of it now. We've got a lovely clip here of you conducting. We saw you rehearsing, I think, a bit earlier, but here you are making your conducting debut, and it was actually on Austrian TV. This is a lovely clip, and you look fabulous. You look in control, and you look as though you're enjoying every minute of it. Let's have a look. So I know I'm not meant to say it because it's like, you know, suddenly turning the conversation to fashion, but you look fabulous. Where did that dress was lovely. You must have chosen it very specially.
Well, it's actually it's a Chinese traditional dress, the cheongsam, and I thought it fits perfectly to conducting because it's quite regal and noble. And you know, I didn't want to, you know, wear black or you know, or something like that.
No, it's perfect. And of course,
it really quite well to the female conductor.
Well, you have to think of these things. You've got to look glamorous, I suppose. Everybody needs to nowadays doing this sort of job. But you've got to free your arms to be able to do both your violin and your conducting.
Exactly. You need to be able to wave your arms around, so you can't be. On the other hand, you can't come and wear some glittering red dress. That also doesn't work. But I thought the tradition with the high neck and the long dress, I thought that was quite a good solution, actually.
It was. It looks absolutely wonderful. And nowadays you have to think of these things. But knowing that you were also on television, or when you're on that stage and you're conducting and you're playing, do you get lost in the music, or do you think of the audience and the wider audience watching on television?
No, I was so excited. I was completely in the music then, and I was. But it was the first time that I was conducting an orchestra, live, and I was absolutely, you know, ecstatic in giving the timpani the in the end and in the climax, and giving the orchestra some schwung, as one calls it, so that exciting them and inspiring them was an amazing feeling. So I was completely in the music.
But it's interesting. I mean, you're obviously very well used to performing in front of people, and now you'll be more and more used to conducting a big orchestra as well. But you love theatre. You clearly love the theatricality of it, and that is maybe why you are very interested in composing opera. And you've been working on staging Cinderella, and of course, as you said, you've been working on your new opera. So first of all, tell us about Cinderella, because you have been working on that a long time.
Yes, well, look, with Cinderella, we've been in Salzburg. We've been rehearsing and putting it on in between lockdowns,
which is not easy.
It's not at all easy, I can tell you that, because you know the stage of rehearsal, it's very, very well. It's quite stressful. It takes lots of concentration. I know from me and a lot from the singers, and very time intensive, and you put all this effort to it, and then you know, oh well, there's a performance coming up, and so it's worth it. But if you don't know when the performance is, it's really quite
Yes.
it's really quite strange. So this piece was hit twice by Corona, this last year and also this year. So it's a bit, but still, it's so wonderful that at least something now is on the stage there. And
you made a very interesting little video about what you called the journey of a melody. And that's what I was going to ask you. If you've been working on something like an opera for a long time, especially when you get interrupted by a pandemic, do you change it as you go? Do you always feel that it's always going to be a work in progress and you make little changes? Tell me what you mean by the journey of a melody, and then we'll hear it.
Well, in Cinderella, actually, lots of the melodies come from when I was really very young. And actually one quite funny example is, and the duet of the stepsisters, the melody from there came when I was 7, and I just woke up in the morning and I had this dramatic melody in my mind, and I started to play it on the piano. And my parents recorded it, actually, so I have the evidence of when I first got that melody. And then one could see the transition then to when it's with full orchestra and amazing opera singers singing it on the stage with amazing costumes, and you see this is how it could sound like. And it came all the way from this little girl just waking up in the morning and with this idea in her head to the opera singers on the stage, and with this huge.
Well, let's have a look at that clip, because it does show very much how you did progress the melody and how the whole performance progressed in time. This is called Journey of a Melody. I can see how you've got the melody in your head and you work on it for a while, but then when you see it actually being performed, you probably are inspired to do other things with it.
Of course. And, with Cinderella, there were always lots of stage. Every time it was performed, I would get inspired to make it even better. And I would have other ideas how one could bring out the emotion even better in the music and show what the characters are thinking. So,
and do you get involved very much in the actual physical staging of it?
Well, yes. I mean, every production is a bit different, but with many of the productions, yes, I was very, very closely involved with helping to design the costumes and the set and the acting a bit
and set design. And in the clip we're about to see, Up in the Sky, you're actually playing in it, and I think your sister's in this clip as well, isn't she?
Well, let's see.
We'll have a look. This is called Up in the Sky, and we see again the different way things can be staged. Very modern set here.
Welche Töne? Stopp! Genug! Genug, Cinderella. Diese Melodien in deinem Kopf interessieren ja niemanden. Konzentriere dich. Nur noch die Noten für den Kontrabass, dann hast du es geschafft.
Well, there you are, both you and your sister Helen in it. And their staging, as I said, very minimalist in that particular bit anyway, very modern. That must have been great fun doing that all together.
Oh, that was great fun. Yes. And it was also, it was also nice to have a different perspective, because it was also quite a minimalistic production.
Yes. But haven't you done, or you've actually done the premiere of Cinderella once? I know it had to be pared down a little bit because of COVID, but that, again, much more traditional look there.
That was a few years ago. That was in California, in San Jose. Yes, that was very, very traditional costumes, long dresses, magnificent scenery. Yes.
Do you think then that composers ever feel that they have completely finished, and can put away an opera or a symphony or whatever? Or would they always love to tinker with it? Do you think you will always want to tinker with it?
Well, I've been tinkering with it ever since I was 10. I mean, I started working on it when I was 8, and melodies come from all over my life, when I was really small. But I've been really working it from when I was 10 on and off to when I was 15, really, because then I revised it quite a lot.
Well, tell us then about your new enterprise.
I'm really quite happy with it, and I'm sure I will always make little changes, but I think now I've
ready to move on.
I think for the moment anyway.
Yeah. Well, in that case, let us move on. Tell us about The Emperor's New Waltz.
Well, yes. Well, so The Emperor's New Waltz is it's a romantic comedy, and also a bit of a satire, inspired a bit by The Emperor's New Clothes.
I wondered.
Yes. And well, yes, no, it's quite a funny plot. So I don't want to give away too much. I mean, they're two very dodgy characters. They're swindlers. They're not pretending to be weavers, not like in Andersen's fairy tale, but they pretend to be musicians, and they compose. They say that they compose music that only very clever people can understand, and this music consists of crashes and bangs. And so anyways, I won't give you too much away, but
no, I can understand. But of course, waltzes are something that you are very close to your heart. I mean, they would have to be in Vienna, wouldn't they? But it is something we already know you can write great waltzes.
Not for nothing that it's called The Emperor's New Waltz.
Exactly. I like that. You posted online a clip of you playing a bit of it for Halloween. Now, what was that all about?
Yes, you see, that's I thought it would fit quite well because it's one of the characters, one of these musicians, one of the swindlers. She's trying to convince someone else. She's singing them a song about how amazing and sophisticated crashes and bangs are. And I thought that would fit perfectly for Halloween. So
yes, yeah, there's a naughtiness to it, isn't there? A playfulness to it. This clip that we're going to see is called the musical Poltergeist. Is there some sort of a tradition of musical poltergeists, or was that just the way you decided to interpret it?
that was, well, I thought that's the Halloween, the fairy tales of Halloween. So I thought that is completely appropriate for Halloween because I thought the music also sounds quite spooky.
Because you are fascinated, as well as traditional music, symphonic music, you are clearly fascinated by extraordinary sounds. I think of that, the way you built sirens and the sounds of the city into one of your works. And in this one, it's all sort of bangs and crashes, as you say. You like not just traditional notes on the stave, but you like bangs and crashes and unusual sounds.
Or, well, yes, or using them in a fun way. Well, you'll see.
Yes. Okay, well, let's have a look at this little clip. This is called the musical Poltergeist, and Alma has really played up the theatricality here. So do you think we will see Halloween or that sort of spookiness in the finished opera?
You will, but you see, the point is what I always try to do is to take sounds around or to take ugly sounds, crashes and bangs, and then to turn these sounds into something beautiful. Because I always want to write beautiful music that comes from the heart and that speaks to people, music with melodies. And so I always try like sort of taking sort of ugly sounds and through music turning them into something beautiful.
Yes, yeah. You are clearly fascinated by that. I wonder if do you dream this and wake up? I'm thinking of another clip I saw that you did called The Mysterious Barricades, where you play on notes and try to figure out. It was a tune of Couperin's, I think, wasn't it?
It was, yes. The Mysterious Barricades, and it's a piece that's fascinated people for a long time because first of all because of the mysterious name, and also because of the way it's built. Because it's, on the one hand, it's so simple and so intricate, but if you look at it closely, the melodies actually consists of lots of different voices, and the voices on their own, they don't make so much sense. But then when you put them all together, then they make up this melody. So, and then if you look at it, then it actually looks like barrels on top of each other. So,
and that's what you think is the reason he called it the Mysterious Barricades, because if you look at the way the music builds, it forms barricades.
Yes, and one after another. Yes.
What made you even think of that?
Well, it's a piece that I've loved to play on the piano ever since I was small, and I thought it would sound quite beautiful also sung. It really completely obvious why, and you completely see how it's the barrels and how it's built. And I thought, lots of people who've been wondering for ages why it was called like that, it would really be interesting for them.
Yes, you've sort of unraveled a mystery, haven't you?
A little bit. Well,
I wonder what Cooperan would think. Let's have a look at this, because I find it fascinating. I mean, it's a wonderful sound anyway, but at the bottom of the video, you can see the way the sound is working. You can see it visually, and it starts to explain what you just said there. So let's have a look at this video. It's called The Mysterious Barricades.
Do, 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 do,
Alma, that is brilliant and fascinating, and it sounds wonderful at the same time. How did you make that little video? That must have taken hours.
Well, actually, it was quite simple. Someone filmed, and I sang into a microphone, and recorded the voices on top of each other. So I didn't make too much of a fuss about it.
Well, it looks fascinating. It looks very complicated. You must do more of that, because I think people. Do you get feedback from when you post some of these videos online? Do you get feedback from people?
Yes. No, I do, and it's a wonderful feeling when I know that it reaches a wide audience, and that it speaks to people, and that it makes people happier.
Because that is something that comes very strongly from you. It's not just enough to compose and perform, which you do and you love doing, but you love reaching out to people. You're one of the, you love to be a musical, I don't know, somebody who just wants to spread the word and interest other people in music.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. I love explaining to people and involving them so that they know a bit what's going on. And also and narrating and that's what I will also be doing in the Viking concerts. I will be narrating, and I will explain what's happening with the pieces and involving the audience with it. And I think it's so important. And I always, when I go to a concert and the conductor or the soloist just comes in and doesn't say a word to the audience, and just start playing, I really think that something is missing, because it makes it just so much more informal, and the audience feels that they're part of it.
Yes.
And understand what's going on.
Absolutely. I quite agree with you. If a conductor doesn't engage with the audience, crack a few jokes, tell you a bit about the history of the piece you're going to hear, or why it is, you do miss out. There's an extra element missing, isn't there?
What's the story? Yes.
And if any people who love to follow you and your music want to play any of it themselves, you've actually published your first volume of sheet music now, haven't you?
I have, yes. It's quite amazing that people all over the world can just, in their homes, just sit on the piano and play my music. That's actually always been my dream, ever since I was small. I played music and exercises from these books, and I always dreamed that, I said, why can't my music why can't people play my music? And so I think I prepared a little book for my sister, and I sort of forced her to learn pieces and to teach her. And I don't think she was nearly appreciative enough of my kind-hearted attempts to teach her.
Well, it's yet another string to your bow, as they say.
Quite amazing that it's now actually come true.
Here is a fascinating thing I found absolutely amazing when I heard about this, that a lady in Italy, I think, has published this interactive list of the 500 most influential female composers ever, because she feels that they don't get the recognition that the men in the musical world do. And when you look at the history, she's absolutely right, isn't she? Women conductors and composers have been overlooked largely in history. Why do you think that is?
I think that's quite obvious. I mean, it was just women composers were not accepted or taken seriously. It's just not something that women would do. I mean, they would singers, for instance. There were lots of women singers and divas. That was fine, but this creative work, that was not seen as a woman's job, really. So they didn't get the education, and even if they did, they weren't, their pieces were rarely played or published. There's actually quite an amazing story about the sister of Felix Mendelssohn. So he went to play for Queen Victoria, and they got on very well, and he played her lots of his songs. And then he said, "Oh, well, choose your favorite song, and I'll play it for you." So she chose a song, and then Mendelssohn got quite embarrassed, and he said, "Well, actually that song was not actually composed by me. It was composed by my sister, Fanny." And It was under his name, because she wasn't allowed under her name to publish her music.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. And it is said the same can be said possibly of Mozart's sister.
Yes, I when I was small, I read this novel about her where she secretly composes a symphony, and she's not allowed to. No one takes her seriously, and no one wants to perform her music. And she used to be one of my biggest inspirations, and I used to be so sad and so angry that she was not allowed to become a composer. And so happy that I'm born now. That
absolutely. Gosh, and it must feel wonderful to be included in that list of 500.
It is. It's a great honor. But I mean, ultimately, I think I want to be just a composer, regardless of whether I'm a woman or not. I would just want
to
of course, have my music for my music, not because I'm a female composer. But of course, yes, it's a great honor.
Yes. Oh, I think it's wonderful. And it is a very, because you always wonder about those women that you just mentioned who were never able to reach their potential. Had they had the same opportunities you now have, who knows? They might have been bigger and better than their brothers. Who knows? But yes, hopefully now you live in a world where gender doesn't matter in music, and we hear more and more female artists just existing in their own right. Tell us now, you and I have both turned up.
For other people, for other girls, and they say, well, they can see, oh well, then maybe I can also be a composer. I don't have to be a man to be a composer.
I think you're already having that effect. Tell us more now about Viking, because you and I have both turned up to this interview in our Viking sweaters, quite coincidentally. And you, as I said at the very beginning, people going on Viking cruises on the Danube will get the chance to come and see you live, which is brilliant. I hope you're going to be including your waltzes. I'm sure you will.
What a question! Of course.
You are on the Danube.
Oh yes. No, it's incredibly exciting. I'll be conducting in the wonderful Concerthaus, the Johann Strauss Kapelle Orchestra, and we'll play for you beautiful music from Vienna, so of Mozart and of Strauss, and of course my own compositions. So my waltzes and other pieces, my violin concerto, and and you might even get a sneak preview of my new compositions before everyone else does, of my new opera, because my new opera is, as I said, full of waltzes.
And anyone coming on the Danube river cruises and being able to come to that concert will also be able to sit back and enjoy you talking to them. Just as you said, you will be there, and you will be explaining to the audience what you're doing.
Right now, I will involve the audience, because I know that people love it so much when they're part of it.
Yes. You're going to have to buy a lot more dresses.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to that. It's not a problem at all.
No, I bet. Yeah, absolutely. Just to remind everybody how your waltzes can sound, I've got a video here of the Elmer waltz, composed, of course, by you. Let's have a little listen to that, and then we'll talk more about Viking and how you're going to be a godmother. And Alma, that's your Elmer waltz. When did you compose that?
I composed it for this dance school in Vienna, and they were celebrating their 100th anniversary. And I spend most of my time there perfecting my waltzing. It's one of my greatest hobbies, dancing, waltzing. And so they asked me if I would compose a waltz, especially for them, for their 100th anniversary. And so I composed this waltz for them, and then I opened the ball, dancing to my own waltz. It was amazing.
Yeah, just for anyone watching, you're one of the ones in the red dress. Absolutely, there's one dress you could wear for your concerts, but you look fantastic there, and you're dancing, and you're composing, and you're playing, and you're conducting. My goodness, what's next? You wonder. Tell us about your relationship with Viking. I mean, clearly, I know that Torstein Hagen and Karina are very, very fond of both you and your sister there. That was taken a while ago. But there was very big news, and it must have been wonderful to be asked to be godmothers to 2 new Viking ships.
It is so exciting. It's the most incredible honor. I think the ceremony will be in Paris. And actually, I was already Helen and we were on one on the naming of one ship. When they throw they break the champagne bottle on the deck.
Yes.
So it's so exciting now.
So yes, you've already been to a christening, so you know what's in store for you. But what fun! That will be wonderful, and it will be. I mean, for anyone going, it's the most incredible cruise down the Danube anyway. There's so much to see, and there will of course be, for anyone going, not only the wonderful things to see, but the prospect of coming to hopefully one of your concerts. How many dates is that going to be during this year? Something like 20 dates, I think. 20
concerts, yes.
You're going to be very, very busy. That will be exhausting. I can see, but you'll certainly enjoy it. We've got some questions that have come in from people who've been watching you before, and they've been saying basically, how do you make all those little video clips that you do post online? How do you make them? Do you do it yourself? Do you have a professional company come in to do it? Because they're beautifully made.
Oh, thank you. Well, someone films me with a camera, and then I speak into the camera, and it's quite simple actually. I mean, I play into the camera. It's not a big thing. It's not too difficult. It's interesting you say that. I suppose that's your youth. I mean, somebody older like me think, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to do that? But anyone of your generation, you're just a video, making videos, being part of the social media, having that as part of your communications with the outside world. That's all very natural to you. And maybe that is the new way for musicians to communicate what they do. Exactly, spreading music to wide audience, to people all over the world, completely other end of the world can listen to the music. It's quite an amazing thing. And you can communicate with them. More questions. I mean, where do you see your career progressing over the next few years? Well, I will, of course, always be a composer. And now that I'm also a conductor, I will want to conduct my music. I want to conduct my operas and my symphonies and my waltzes. And of course, I also would want to continue as a soloist on violin and piano. It's a bit annoying that a day only has 24 hours instead of 39.
That was the next question that's just come in. That how many hours a day do you play, think, live and breathe music? What do you do the rest of your time, if there is any?
In the rest of the time, well, as I said, I dance. I dance my heart out, and that's what I do very often to relax. And then I love also just going for walks in the nature, in the vineyards, and just having some time for myself. And then I think of stories in my mind, or sometimes a melody comes to me when I'm just thinking of something else, or I just can have some space to breathe. Or I love reading, so I'm a bookworm.
About music or anything else?
About music, but about everything. About everything, really. And then I remember almost everything that I read if I find it interesting.
Another question, what's happened to Helen? What's she doing?
Helen's getting on very well. Helen's she's at school now in Vienna, and Helen and we sing very often together, duets, and play duets on the violin. And
is she going to be a musician as well, or do you think she'll go off and do something else?
She might be a singer. She loves acting. She's very theatrical.
Yes. I wondered if she was doing a lot of acting, because she was doing it in one of the clips there of Cinderella.
Yeah. She loves animals as well.
Yeah, never. Well, I mean, you're still. I keep going on about your youth, but you are still young. There's plenty of other things to think of doing anyway, isn't there? Plenty of different ways you can branch out. And so we've just had Christmas. We're looking forward to a new year that will hopefully, open up, and you'll be able to do more and more. Apart from the Viking concerts, are there any other things in your diary?
Well, that with Corona it's very difficult to plan, but there are quite a few plans and ideas. Who knows, maybe I will conduct Cinderella in the whole opera myself. That would be amazing. And of course the Viking concerts.
Yeah.
And my new opera is is my big project, what I'm really working on. I think I still have about 6 months to work on orchestrating it.
Gosh.
And then it will be performed in early 2023.
Yeah, well, there you are. That's 2022 written off, isn't it?
Yes. Actually, I did a workshop of the opera a few weeks ago. So, and I was playing the piano, and a few singers were singing through it, and it worked very well.
It sounded good, did it?
About the new opera.
Well, for anyone watching who wants to catch up with everything you're doing, of course, you've got your own website now, and there are loads of, you've got your own YouTube channel almost as well, with lots of these clips on, so that people can go and look at those. But for the moment, I'll love you and leave you. You look fantastic in your Viking jumper.
You do as well.
Maybe we'll see you, and certainly I think everybody watching at the moment will hope that they will be able to come and see you as they sail down the Danube.
I hope
thank you so much.
To see you all there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me again. It's just so exciting, actually, to catch up with everything you're doing, because I really do think we're watching your career just develop and grow. And who knows what we'll talk about next year. But in the meantime, have a wonderful new year, you and your whole family. I think you're doing a grand job. I really do. So I'm just going to say thank you and goodbye. Thank you very much. And what we're going to do now is leave everybody with some more of your wonderful music. We had a little snatch of it very much earlier. So until next week, do stay safe and well. And from me to you and to everybody watching, goodbye.
Vienna is the music capital of Europe, and this elegant Austrian city has been home to many celebrated composers, including Schubert, Haydn, Strauss, and Mozart. Their timeless compositions are beloved around the world. And now there's a new generation of extraordinary musical talent in the city. Alma Deutscher was born in 2005 and began learning the piano at aged just 2. When she was 6 years old, she composed her first piano sonata and went on to start writing her first full-length opera aged 8. She's been described by some as the second Mozart, although she prefers to be the first Alma. And in 2019, she played a concert of her own compositions to a sold-out audience at New York's Carnegie Hall. And now you can enjoy an exclusive live performance hosted by Alma in Vienna's Concert House.
Hello everyone. I've had a passion for composing music and performing ever since I was really little. And now I have a new passion, conducting an orchestra. And so I'm incredibly excited that next year I'll be performing here in Vienna, exclusively for Viking guests. And I'll be conducting the wonderful Strauss Capella Orchestra and also leading them from the violin. And we'll play for you beautiful music from Vienna, pieces by Mozart, waltzes and polkas by this guy here, Johann Strauss, and also some of my own compositions, which I hope you'll want to hum all the way back to the ship and as you sail off down the Danube. And who knows, you might even get a sneak preview of some of my new compositions before anyone else does.